AITA for ignoring my father until he reached out after my $580 million hotel chain made headlines. After 3 years of silence, my father had decided that 9 words were enough. I stared at the screen in my corner office on the 42nd floor as if these words could rearrange themselves and make sense. The last time Harrison Redmond had demanded my presence, I was 26. I was waiting in a bridal suite at the Carlisle for him to walk me down the aisle, and he never came. My assistant, Isabella, knocked softly before entering. The interview with Forbes is confirmed for Thursday, and the Wall Street Journal wants a statement on the expansion in Tokyo. Send them the press release we prepared. I replied, my eyes still glued to my phone. Isabella, clear my schedule for this afternoon. Something came up. She glanced at her tablet, then looked at me with concern. You have the investor dinner at Cipriani. They traveled from Singapore just to see you. Postpone it, I said, looking her straight in the eye. Family emergency. The word family had a bitter taste. 3 years earlier, my father had been clear. Building a hotel group from scratch wasn't worthy of a Redmond daughter. Marrying Marcus Chun, a brilliant architect whose parents had immigrated from Taiwan, was even worse in his eyes. Harrison wanted me to join Redmond Capital, marry someone from our world, and give him grandchildren who would spend their summers in the Hamptons. Instead, I married Marcus in a ceremony my father refused to attend. My mother, Claire, had come in tears, apologizing in a low voice. My younger brother, Julian, had walked me down the aisle, his jaw clenched in anger at our father. But Harrison Redmond stayed home, and when I called him the next day, he told me coldly, "You made your choice. You want to build hotels with that man? Fine, but don't come crying when it fails. You are no longer a Redmond." Except I remained a Redmond. That name opened doors, whether I wanted it to or not. And I used every contact, every lesson learned in that world to build something that belonged only to me. Our company, Horizon Luxury Hotels, started with a small boutique hotel in Brooklyn that everyone said was doomed. Marcus designed it. I managed operations, and we put everything we had into making it perfect. 5 years later, we owned 43 properties in North America and Europe. The valuation had just hit $580 million, and the business press was eating it up. She turns her back on the family fortune and builds her empire. Forbes called me a visionary redefining luxury for millennials. Apparently, my father read the papers too. I left the office at 6:30 p.m., driving my Tesla through Manhattan traffic toward the Upper East Side townhouse where I had grown up. The stone facade was exactly as I remembered it, imposing and cold. The doorman was new. He didn't recognize me, and I had to wait while he called upstairs to confirm my arrival. My mother opened the door herself, which was strange. Usually, it was the housekeeper. Claire Redmond looked older than in my memories, more fragile, even though she was only 58. Her blonde hair was impeccable, her Chanel suit perfect, but her eyes seemed exhausted. "My darling," she said, hugging me tight, as if she were afraid I would disappear. "I'm so glad you came. What is all this, Mom?" She stepped back, looking toward the dining room. "Your father will explain everything." Julian was already there. My brother stood up to hug me. Despite everything, we had remained close, having lunch every 2 or 3 weeks without ever talking about our father. Julian had joined the family business as planned, but he had always said Harrison handled my situation poorly. "You look good," he whispered. "Success suits you." He's in the study, making us wait, as usual. Julian poured me a glass of wine. "Have you seen the latest news on Redmond Capital?" I took the glass. "I don't follow their business." "Maybe you should." The deal with Vinton Group blew up. The merger with Worth Financial collapsed last week. Dad's been putting out fires for months, and the board is starting to panic. Before I could answer, my father walked in. Harrison Redmond, 63, still tall, broad-shouldered, with a posture as straight as a soldier's. He had gained some weight and wrinkles lined his face, but his gaze remained hard. "Punctual," he remarked as if I were an employee arriving at a meeting. "Let's sit." No hello, not a word about 3 years of silence. We sat at the end of a long dining table set for 16 people. Tonight, there were only 4 place settings. The housekeeper served the appetizer in silence, then slipped away. My father waited until she was gone to speak. "I imagine you know why I asked you to come." "I don't make assumptions with you anymore, Dad," I replied calmly. Julian murmured, "Easy, Leah." A flicker crossed Harrison's face. Surprise? Maybe pain. Then it was gone. Your company is making a lot of noise lately. Impressive growth. Thank you. The expansion in Tokyo is ambitious. 15 properties in the first phase. I put down my fork. Dad, I didn't come here to discuss strategy with you. You said it was important. It is important. He leaned back in his chair. Redmond Capital is going through a complicated period. The market is unstable. Some of our investments haven't paid off as planned. The board is pushing us to diversify. Julian stared at his plate, his jaw clenched. My mother's hands were knotted in her lap. The hospitality industry has enormous potential, my father continued. Your company has exactly the profile that would strengthen our portfolio. I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over my head. You want to buy my company? I'm proposing a merger, Harrison said. Redmond Capital acquires Horizon Luxury Hotels. You would keep operational management, of course, but under our group. We would finance your expansion, open our network, our resources. In exchange for a 60% stake, your shares would be worth much more at Redmond Capital. You would become very wealthy, and your husband would receive a generous payout for his share. I looked at my mother, her eyes full of held-back tears, then at Julian, who still refused to look at me. Did you know about this? Dad talked about it last week, Julian admitted. I told him it was a horrible idea. Why? My father cut in. It's a solid proposal. Anyone rational would see the benefit. Anyone rational would see, above all, I replied, that you only became interested in me the day my company was worth enough to solve your problems. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You didn't come to my wedding. You told me I wasn't a Redmond anymore. You erased me from your life because I married someone you deemed unworthy and because I started my own business instead of joining yours. I wanted to teach you about consequences, Harrison said. You made choices that gave this family a bad image. A bad image? I felt the anger rising, the anger I had kept locked away for 3 years. Marcus is a brilliant architect. He is kind and loyal. He supported me when I had nothing. What exactly was the problem? That he wasn't one of us. The words hung there, ugly and undeniable. My mother let out a small sound as if something were being torn from her. There it is, I said softly. The truth. It wasn't about business or my choices. It was your snobbery. You care more about pedigree than character. Watch your tone, my father threatened. Are you going to disinherit me again? I laughed. Already done. You missed my wedding day. Do you know what that feels like? Standing there in a dress, checking your phone every 5 minutes, hoping your father will change his mind at the last moment? Julian had to walk me down the aisle while Mom cried in the front row. And you stayed home to teach me a lesson. Harrison's face turned red. You defied me. You chose that man over your family. I chose myself. I chose the person I loved, the life I wanted to build. And you punished me for it. I grabbed my bag. Now that my company is successful, suddenly I deserve your time. But only because you need me to save Redmond Capital. It's business, he said icily. I'm offering you an opportunity most people would accept. Most fathers go to their daughters' weddings. I headed for the door, then stopped out of curiosity. What were you planning to offer Marcus in your merger? What role were you giving my husband, the co-founder of the company you want to swallow? Silence answered me. You wanted to erase him, I whispered. Buy out his shares, push him out, pretend he never existed. Just like you tried to pretend our marriage never happened. Marcus Chun is an architect, not a businessman, my father stated. No, this discussion, it's you trying to use me, I shot back, to save your sinking ship, while continuing to refuse to acknowledge my husband as part of my family. I turned to my mother. Did you know this too? That his grand plan included wiping Marcus off the map. My mother was crying openly now. I told him it was wrong. I told him you would never accept. But I didn't know he was going to do it like this. It hurt more coming from her than from him. You invited me, and you let me walk into a trap, I said. I hoped we could fix something, my mother whispered. But I missed you so much. I told myself if you came back, even for business, maybe it would heal things. Healing requires an apology, Mom. It requires acknowledging the harm done. I looked her straight in the eyes. Has he apologized for missing my wedding? Has he apologized for telling me I wasn't his daughter anymore? My father stood up, his hands on the table. I will not apologize for protecting this family's legacy. Everything I built, Everything the Redmond name represents, it matters. It mattered more than me. I breathed. That isn't fair. Fair? You want to talk about fairness? I stepped closer. After you abandoned me, Marcus and I emptied our first savings account. We lived in a studio apartment for 2 years, working 18-hour days. Eating instant noodles at night. I learned plumbing because we couldn't afford to pay anyone. Marcus slept on construction sites to prevent theft because we couldn't afford security. We fought. We almost gave up 10 times, but we built something real. Without your money, without your contacts, without anything from the family, except this name that I didn't let go of. I looked at him without trembling. Horizon Luxury is worth $580 million because we earned every cent. It's ours, and you will never get your hands on it. You're being too emotional, Harrison said with contempt. In a few days, when you've thought about it rationally. In a few days, I cut him off. You'll read about our expansion in Tokyo in the Wall Street Journal. Then you'll see our partnership with the Tanaka Group, which will drive the company's value even higher, and you'll know we did it without you. I walked out. If you leave now, don't expect other invitations, my father screamed behind me. I turned one last time. Perfect. I don't want any. Julian caught up with me in the lobby. Wait, I'll walk you out. Outside on the steps, he hugged me tight. I'm proud of you, Leah. I should have told you that from the start. You walked me down the aisle. I whispered. That was enough. No, it wasn't. I should have fought him more. I should have refused to work for him until he fixed things with you. It's your life, Julian. I don't blame you. He lowered his voice. Mom. She feels guilty. Sometimes she calls me crying. She's afraid of him. She's always been afraid. That doesn't excuse anything, but it's true. I remembered her desperate embrace at the door. Are their finances that bad? It's bad enough for him to swallow his pride and ask you for help. That says everything. The merger with Wilmore was supposed to save him. When that tanked, he lost credibility. He's talking about restructuring. It could end very badly. He looked me straight in the eyes. He's desperate, Leah. And when he's desperate, he's dangerous. Protect yourself. I wanted to believe he was exaggerating. He wasn't. 2 days later, Isabella arrived with a pile of messages. We received some strange calls this morning, she said cautiously. 3 investors who were confirmed for Tokyo are suddenly pulling out. They're citing doubts about our management stability. My stomach nodded. Who did they talk to? Isabella frowned. That's the strangest part. Each one said they received information from someone aware of your family situation. They're worried about a conflict between your personal and professional life. Harrison had just made his move. If he couldn't buy me, he was going to try to break me. I called Julian immediately. Do you know anything about Dad contacting my investors? He sighed. Yesterday, he had lunch with Richard Widmer. Widmer sits on the board of K Capital. That's one of your financiers in Tokyo. No, that was one of my financiers. They pulled out this morning. Silence. There were 2 other lunches this week, Julian added. I don't know with whom, but I can find out. This is really low, even for him. Can you stop him? I can try, but I'm not the one with the real power. He was right. I was taking a beating when I needed to take the initiative. That same evening, I went home to our loft in Brooklyn. Marcus was in his office, buried in the plans for our project in Singapore. We need to talk, I said. He looked up immediately, concerned. Marcus had been my rock. He had never pushed me to reconcile. He had never forced me to make a decision that would hurt me. What's going on? He asked softly. I told him everything. The dinner, the proposal, the sabotage, the fleeing investors. He listened without interrupting, his face darkening with every detail. He's trying to destroy what we built, he said finally. Yes, but he just gave me something precious. What? Proof that he's really on the edge of a cliff. I opened my laptop. Remember the Grand Vista Properties portfolio that was put up for sale last month? Marcus's eyes widened. The one Redmond Capital was trying to buy? 15 premium properties in major cities, including 3 in Manhattan. The price is huge, but if we have the financing, what if we made a competing offer? I said. He stood up and started pacing, as he always did when an idea lit him up. If we win Grand Vista, it's a direct hit to his rescue plan. And above all, it proves we're no longer a small company he can crush. We're real players. I looked at him. But I need to know you're on board. This is going to get dirty. He's going to see this as a war. Marcus sat down next to me. Leah, your father declared war when he tried to sabotage us. I'm with you. We're going to build bigger, better, in our way. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. I assembled a consortium of international investors by activating every relationship I had earned in 5 years. The Tanaka Group put in $150 million. Our partners from Singapore added $80 million. A family office from Dubai put in $100 million. When we submitted our offer for Grand Vista Properties, it exceeded Redmond Capital's by $47 million. The day before the deadline, I received an unexpected call from Victor Morgan, my father's longtime partner. I had crossed paths with him a few times at galas when I was younger, and he had always been kind. "I probably shouldn't be calling you," he began, "but I've known you since you were little, and I owe you the truth." "I'm listening," I replied cautiously. "Your father came to see me last week. He wanted me to block your offer on Grand Vista. He wanted me to use my contacts on the board to sow doubt about your financing. Delay the decision long enough for him to find a better deal." He paused. I told him no. I was surprised. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Harrison is losing control. He's making enemies instead of allies. He is obsessed with the idea of beating you, and he's forgetting to run his company. I've seen him self-destruct for 3 years, and it all started the day he decided you were an enemy rather than his daughter." His voice grew heavy. "Whatever happens with Grand Vista, don't let his bitterness contaminate you. You built something remarkable, and you did it with integrity. Keep that, even if he tries to drag you into the mud." After the call, I stood for a long time watching Manhattan through the window. Part of me wanted to back down, to leave him a victory just to stop the damage. But the other part, the one that had survived rejection and built a business from zero, knew that showing weakness would just invite other attacks. Marcus found me an hour later. "What are you thinking about?" Victor Morgan called me. "Dad tried to sabotage our offer." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Morgan warned you?" "Yes. Everyone tells me Dad is crumbling, that this is destroying him, and a part of me feels guilty." "You are not responsible for his choices," Marcus said, standing beside me. "He created this situation when he decided that loving you had conditions, when he forced you to choose between your family and your happiness, and punished you because you chose yourself." I swallowed hard. I think about my wedding constantly. Me in that ridiculous, overpriced dress, looking at my phone, hoping he would change his mind. Mom inventing excuses like traffic or a work call. But deep down, I knew he wouldn't come. Marcus held me close. "I would have married you in jeans at City Hall. The only important thing was that you said yes." "I know, but you wanted him to be there, didn't you? You wanted him to see you happy and understand he was wrong," Marcus said. "That doesn't make you weak, Leah. It makes you human." I let out a bitter laugh. Instead of that, he doubled down. He told me, "You made your choice, now live with it." "And you lived with it," Marcus replied. "You even thrived. And that's what's killing him. Not because you defied him, but because you were right and he was wrong." The next morning, we submitted our final offer. It was aggressive, almost too much, but it reflected our confidence. 3 days of silence followed. I barely slept. Every time my phone vibrated, my heart jumped. Then the call came. The CEO of Grand Vista. "Mrs. Chun, I have the pleasure of informing you that your consortium has been selected." The relief was so strong I had to sit down. "Thank you. We can't wait to get started." "I must clarify," he added, "that your father attempted a last-ditch effort to match your offer. But beyond the numbers, the board was impressed by your vision and your history of successful renovations. That weighed more than Mr. Redmond's established reputation." I celebrated for exactly 3 minutes, no more, before diving into the avalanche of work involved in taking over 15 properties at once. Julian called me the day the news broke. "Dad is having an emergency meeting with the board. They are furious, and he knows you're behind this. He's making threats." "Threatening what?" Julian hesitated. "To disinherit me. To say I'm not really his daughter anymore." I exhaled. He already did that. He has no power over me anymore. But he wasn't finished. The next wave came through my mother. Claire called me, which she rarely did. "Please, meet me for lunch." Against my better judgment, I accepted. We met at a quiet French restaurant in Midtown, the kind of place where high society women whisper over porcelain cups. My mother looked even more fragile. Her hand shook slightly when she picked up her teacup. "Your father is talking about divorce," she blurted out. I took that like a punch to the gut. "What?" "He holds me responsible for what happened with you. He says if I had been firmer when you were dating Marcus, If I had supported him instead of supporting you in secret, none of this would have happened. He's already spoken to his lawyer. Mom, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. She leaned toward me, her voice urgent. Pull out of the Grand Vista deal. Let him have this victory. If the board sees him succeed, they'll calm down, and so will he. I looked at her, stunned. You're asking me to sacrifice my company's expansion to save your marriage. I'm asking you to save what's left of this family. Her eyes filled with tears. I know he did everything wrong. I know he hurt you. But a divorce at our age, in our circle, it would destroy everything I've built for 35 years. And then, everything became clear, slowly but surely. He sent you, didn't he? I came on my own, she said, a little too quickly. I didn't even need to insist. The way she looked away gave me the answer. He's using you to get to me, I whispered. Just like he used that dinner. Just like he uses his contacts to sabotage my business. Leah, he's your father. He gave me nothing. I snapped, then lowered my voice. The name, maybe. And when I needed him, on my wedding day, all he gave me was abandonment and cruelty. My mother was crying again. I just want our family to be reunited. We were never reunited, Mom. We lived in the same house, playing the roles Dad imposed on us. I stood up and left some cash on the table. I love you, but I am not setting myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. The Grand Vista deal closed 4 weeks later. Horizon Luxury Hotels acquired the 15 properties. We grew to 58 hotels, and our valuation climbed to $890 million. The press talked about a spectacular changing of the guard in New York hospitality. Redmond Capital shares dropped by 8%. 2 board members resigned. Analysts started openly saying that Harrison Redmond had lost his touch. I didn't rejoice in his fall, but I didn't mourn it either. As he had said, it's business, and in business, the best person wins. 3 months later, I was at the gala inauguration of our new property in Manhattan, an incredibly renovated Grand Vista building. The ballroom was full of investors, partners, journalists, and city officials. Marcus was by my side when we cut the ribbon. The applause was warm, sincere. In the middle of the evening, Isabella came toward me with a strange look on her face. You have a visitor. He's not on the list, but he says it's important. My heart tightened when I saw who was waiting in the lobby. Harrison Redmond, standing in his coat, looking older, heavier. The lines around his eyes had deepened. I'm in the middle of an event, I said. This isn't the time. I know. He looked around the transformed lobby, the high ceilings, the contemporary art. I saw the press. It's magnificent. Your husband has real talent. The compliment stopped me cold. Thank you, I said cautiously. He took a breath as if speaking cost him a great deal. I was wrong about Marcus. About your company. About everything. I waited. The board pushed me out last week, he confessed. 40 years building Redmond Capital, and they showed me the door. Julian tried to fight for me, but he didn't have enough votes. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said. He looked up, surprised. Really? Do you want to know the reason it happened? He whispered, and in his voice, there was something broken. I didn't move. It's because I tried to sabotage your Tokyo deal. I know. He looked down. I thought I was protecting the legacy. In reality, I was afraid. Afraid of what? He exhaled. That you wouldn't need me anymore. That you would build something bigger, better, without me. Which meant I wasn't as important as I thought. And you did it. You built an empire while I was trying to break you because you didn't follow my path. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard him make. I missed your wedding because I was an idiot, he continued. I missed 3 years of your life because I was stubborn and proud. And now, I've lost everything. Except for this one truth. You are a better business person than I am. I wanted to speak, but he raised a hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I was wrong. And seeing you succeed, even knowing it contributed to my downfall, has been the strangest honor. You are brilliant and tough, Leah. And you didn't learn that from me. Something loosened in my chest. I did learn from you, I acknowledged. The things that were worth learning. We stayed silent for a moment. And now, I asked, your mother and I are moving to the house in Connecticut. A smaller, quieter life. Maybe golf, like all the other retired executives. I looked at him. You're not divorcing? He shook his head. No, that was me being cruel, looking for leverage. Claire is the only good decision I've made in years. The only good thing I've held on to. even when I almost ruined everything. Behind the doors, I could hear Marcus's voice on stage, thanking the team, the partners, the investors. His voice was warm and sure, exactly what I had always loved. "Do you want to meet him?" I asked softly, properly, not as a problem to be solved. As my husband. My father's eyes widened, and for the first time in a long time, he looked hesitant. "I don't want to spoil your event." "You're already here," I replied. Before I could change my mind, I led him into the ballroom. Marcus had just finished his speech. When he saw me arriving with my father, his face tensed, protective, but he didn't step back. "Marcus," I said, "I'd like to introduce you to Harrison Redmond, my father." They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Marcus extended his hand. "Mr. Redmond, I've heard a lot about you." My father shook his hand. "Only bad things, I imagine." Marcus gave a slight smile. "Not only. Your daughter respects your business intelligence, even when she's hurt by your actions." "My daughter is generous," Harrison whispered. Then, in a lower voice, "I owe you an apology, Mr. Chun. I judged you without knowing you, and I tried to erase your role in a company you built from the ground up. It was inexcusable." Marcus raised his eyebrows, surprised, but remained calm. "I appreciate you saying that." Harrison looked around at the architecture, the elegance, Marcus's obvious signature in every detail. "This building, what you've created here, it's remarkable. You are talented, and you make my daughter happy. That is more important than anything." They spoke for a few more minutes with caution, finding neutral ground. Then my father excused himself. "I've taken enough of your time." He headed for the exit, then stopped for a second to look at the room full of light, at everything I had built without him. "You did good work, daughter. Really good." When he left, Marcus put an arm around my waist. "What just happened?" "I think my father finally grew up a little," I whispered. "Or maybe it's me." Marcus kissed my forehead. "Can you forgive him?" I didn't answer right away. I replayed everything in my mind. 3 years of silence, a missed wedding, the cruelty, the sabotage, the manipulation, but also tonight, an admission of fault that must have cost him more pride than losing his job. "Maybe," I said, "but on my terms, at my own pace." "That's exactly right," Marcus breathed. "The truth is, I didn't need my father's approval anymore. I had already proved to myself everything I had to prove. Horizon Luxury was mine and Marcus's, built according to our values. Whether Harrison had changed his mind or not wouldn't change anything. But seeing him try, seeing him finally see me, was like closing a door that had been left ajar for too long. Not slamming it, just closing it with a small, sharp click. The next morning, a package arrived at my office. Inside was a small velvet box containing my grandmother's pearl earrings, the ones she had promised me when I was a child, the ones my father had kept locked away after the wedding drama. There was a note in his handwriting. "These were always meant for you. I am sorry it took me so long to remember that some things are worth more than being right. With love, Dad." I held the pearls to the light, remembering my grandmother placing them in my small hands and telling me, "You will wear these one day at your wedding." She had died before that day, before seeing who I became. But looking at these perfect pearls, I told myself something simple. I could wear them in the life I had built, a life that was entirely mine. I put them on and looked at myself in the mirror. They suited me, not because they were a Redmond heirloom, but because I had finally become someone capable of wearing them on her own terms. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. "Dad told me about last night. Thank you for giving him a chance. We would love for you and Marcus to come for brunch on Sunday, whenever you're ready. No pressure. I love you." I stood for a moment looking at the screen before replying. "Maybe in a few weeks. We are very tied up with the Singapore opening. I'll let you know." It was honest, and it felt like a beginning. I didn't know if our relationship would ever be fully repaired, but at least it could be real. Built on truth, not appearances. On respect, not obligation. And if healing never fully happened, so be it. I had survived worse. Being rejected, hearing I wasn't enough, being sabotaged by the one person who was supposed to protect me. I had survived all that, and I had built something extraordinary along the way. The pearls caught the light as I went back to my desk, where 3 new contracts awaited my signature. My father's approval had arrived 3 years too late to change my life, but perhaps it came right on time for me to accept it without needing it. And that was the real victory. Not the $890 million valuation, Not the 58 hotels, not the headlines. The real victory was being here, free, standing in my own life, with these pearls at my ears and no more chains. I sat at my desk. 3 new contracts awaited my signature. I took a deep breath. The day was just starting, and yet I felt lighter than I had in years. Marcus texted me, "Everything okay?" I smiled and replied, "Yes. Really, yes." I didn't know if one day we would pretend to be a perfect family again, but I didn't want that anymore. I wanted something real, even if it was slow, even if it was imperfect. And if, in the end, things never fully healed, I was ready for that, because I already had everything I needed. I stood up. I looked at Manhattan through the window, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anything from him anymore. I was moving forward. Comment. We often spend years waiting for approval from people who simply cannot give it. Realizing that your value is not defined by someone else's opinion is the first step toward true freedom. Setting boundaries with family can be incredibly painful, yet it is sometimes necessary to protect your peace. Building a life you are proud of is the strongest response to those who doubted you. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, nor does it require you to lower your standards. It is perfectly okay to accept an apology while still keeping the door only slightly open. You have the power to break the cycle of hurt and choose a path rooted in integrity and kindness. Remember, you do not need to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. I hope you find the courage to choose your happiness and move forward with your head held high. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.